Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Rae-diance. It's the premiere episode, and I'm sorry that you can tell that. We are on Rae-diance, shining from within, and I am so excited to host Shari Alyse. She is an author, best-selling author. She is a self-love coach, a motivational speaker, and co-founder of the Wellness Universe. And it is an honor and a thrill and a privilege for me to have her here in this space today. She is one of my dearest friends and mentors. Mm-hmm. And this lady is doing it right. Her best-selling book, you guys, you have to get it. Look, I've already got mine all marked up. Called Love Yourself Happy. It's on Amazon. I'll be dropping the links in the group today. And I just want to share a little bit with you about Shari, and then we'll jump right into it, Shari. She says she, motivated by her own journey through sexual child abuse and other childhood traumas, Shari Alyse has spent her life learning how to love herself fully and completely. Shari helps women and men discover their joy by reconnecting them back to themselves through the practice of self-love. Boy, we need that. Shari is a best-selling author of the book, Love Yourself Happy. Again. Look at that. Motivational speaker and a self-love coach. She is the co-founder of the Wellness Universe, a community of world changers who are helping the world become happy, healthy, and whole. And I am excited to have you, Shari. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Raylyn. I told Raylyn before this that I'm gonna cry, and all you're doing is like reading what I wrote, my bio, and I'm already emotional. I'm like, oh, I did that. Right? I do love myself.
Yes, you do. You do love yourself.
I do. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be on your first show, Rae-diance.
Very first one. Yeah. Now, some of you guys have been watching me, and I've had another show, and I had a co-host show with a dear friend of mine, Laura Mazzata, and all of that's going to shift and change. And so now it's become Rae-diance Shine from Within, and we're very excited to have you here today. I am. I always speak in the we. I'm not sure why, but
well, you're channeling. There's lots with you.
I do that.
I know.
That's another, right? That's another conversation for another day. Oh my gosh. So we were chatting before. You guys, you missed out on a fantastic conversation. We had an entire show before we had this show today. So we were chatting, you and I, on how you found your writer's voice. And just the inspiration from this book, for this book is obviously rooted in your life experiences, and you and I connect there too. Share with us a little bit about your writer's voice, and then we'll go into more in depth of, your story and all of that stuff.
Sure. So, when I knew that I needed to write, and what's interesting, Raylyn, is that as a young girl, and I totally forgot about this, as a young girl, I used to love writing. Yeah. And I would enter, like anytime we had creative writing in class, like I would write all these stories, and I loved writing ghost stories, and I entered like fairs for writing. And I didn't remember any of this until recently, because my journey took me to actually acting. I guess writing wasn't enough of the spotlight for me at the time. So it was like, I don't want to be behind the scenes. I want to be in front. Yeah. So I became an actor, and I forgot about the writing aspect. So a few years ago, it came back up again, this thing that I had to do. And so when I decided that I was going to write this book, because I live such a movie life, I had this whole romanticized version of what writers do. I get my laptop and I go to Starbucks and I sit there and I just pour out my soul. Yeah. And so when I did that, what I realized that what was coming out was like this idea of what a writer writes like. And I'm reading it and I'm like, this does not sound like you at all. And I didn't so then I just kept disconnecting from the work. And so I just never finished it because it did not feel like me. And Anna Pereira, my partner of the Wellness Universe and best friend, she, God, I forgot where I was going. I was totally just like lost she did something. She did something amazing. Yeah. That I can't remember.
Always does. What's up with that?
Yeah. I think, God, where was I going? So anyway, she probably was pushing me along to do this. I'm certain of that.
Yeah.
And I remember just, oh yeah. So she taught me how to use your phone and I guess voice to text. And I hadn't done this before. And so one day when I was hiking along, I hike every morning, all of these ideas for the book started coming to me. So I just decided to pick up my phone and my notes and I started voice to texting this. And literally what I discovered there was when people say you used your writer's voice, it really was my writer's voice because I wrote the majority of my book that way. And I transcribed that. Yeah. So
I'm amazed by that too. I mean, she was sharing this with me, you guys, and I was like, wait a minute, what? How does that work? What are you doing? What? Blowing my mind. But one of the things that I shared with Shari was that it really is her voice. If you've spent, 2 minutes with Shari, you just absolutely know her energy and her passion and her joy and her happiness really does shine from within. And it's one of the things that I believe attracts people to you because of that. And this book, everything in here, this is her voice. And so, she has a chapter in here. Well, we'll get to it.
So it literally is my voice. That's what I told Rae-Lynn, though. I was like, no, it really is my voice because I was speaking my book. And what I discovered in the speaking was that my truth was coming out. And so I just used that. And then I ended up editing it, of course, and fixing areas. But the majority of my book was written by voice. Yeah. So I'm glad it came across. So it did its job.
Yes, it did its job.
Yeah, that and the little Post-it note that I was telling you about that I had in front on my bulletin board that just says, write your truth. And that for me every day was like, don't show up as that writer, like that you imagine and envision, just be you and share the realness and the rawness of, because that's the only way that we serve others is by speaking our truth.
You do talk a lot in the book about showing up for yourself and as yourself. You speak a lot about that. There is a fantastic quote here that I want to share with everyone too. Well, first we'll go into, on page 23, you talked, sorry, I have so many tabs. It's actually page 17. 17 is where you start to kind of go into how your healing story really kind of took on a depth and some new legs for you in that, you had your experience as a child and then fast forward many years. But in there's a quote that says, between you and me, you know what to heal. We all do. It all just comes down whether or not we're ready to face it. And for one of the things for me too, my story is very similar to yours, is we spend a lot of time, I think most of us, running from. Would you agree?
Absolutely. That was actually the name of this book before this one, was Running from the Inside.
Wow.
Yeah. That's it, because it's easier. I mean, it seems easier because why would you want to just sit with the pain that you've experienced? Why would you want to relive that? Why do you want to sit with the things that hurt? So that's the easiest thing we do. We all run. And there's so many different ways that we do that. Even, I always say this because even people who choose healthy outlets, like the gym, they could be running too. 4 times a workout, because sitting in that space and that silence and that stillness, stuff comes up.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and I have a girlfriend who just shared that. She wrote a book too, and we were talking in our journaling group about that. And one of the things that she discusses in her book is that she ran from it through working out all the time. She worked out multiple times a day. So she literally was on that treadmill, literally running.
Right. And you could fool yourself. And you can fool yourself, like, be like, I'm just really healthy and I'm self-care and I'm taking care of myself. And while you are choosing a healthy outlet, it's not healthy when you're not willing to slow down, when you're not willing to sit in that space with yourself. And that's why this book took so many years to write, because I didn't slow down. And what's so interesting is that my entire life I was being pushed to, and I didn't realize it. From the time I was young, and my grandfather would say to me, Shari, slow down, stop speaking so fast, take a breath. You're not going to run out of words. And, I was that kid that was like, always have to, and I didn't realize that if I had just stopped and actually listened, maybe I would have heard my voice more. Maybe I would have heard voice of, for me, God, and then later in life being pushed to, I hurt my knee several times and I was forced to stop going out and partying, sitting still for 6 months. And then I was forced later on, like there's been this ongoing thing of stop.
Yes.
Stop.
Well, I love how you were so raw and so transparent in sharing kind of the beginning of where the breaks were really literally just, to the floor for you from spirit, from God, right? And just your own body, physiologically speaking, just pouring out in your shower that day, and everything, all of those memories, everything that happened to you just came flooding in. What can you share with those who are watching, who are in those very real spaces? I completely identified with that. I've had many moments of it, many of those moments. What, going through that and experiencing that now and seeing it for what it is, and really the healing balm that it is, like you said, you were being propelled toward that moment. We think we're outrunning it, but you were being pushed toward it.
And still trying to outrun it.
Yes. What can you share with the viewers about all of that, and what you've learned through that?
So I think our entire life are like these breadcrumbs, and being given these moments and these, those whispers, those nudges. Sometimes when you're not listening, then it's the 2x4. Yeah. And, and for me, that was one of my 2x4 moments, but probably my saving grace at that point. Because up until that point, I had been sexually abused at 7 years old, and I had taken the man to court. I had prosecuted him. There's more in the book itself, but what I had been told from that young age was that, I was so strong and so brave and so courageous. I put this man in jail. I had saved other girls because they found out he had done this to other girls. And so my entire childhood, I was told all of these things about myself.
Yeah.
But I didn't believe that about myself because nothing about me felt strong and courageous. I was someone who had been violated, And so they were all just words at me. But those words, like anything, I started to believe them. But what I never did was allow that hurt girl to ever sit with, that scared girl to ever sit with those feelings. Because every time a feeling came up was, you're brave, you're courageous, you can get through this. And so I just pushed aside, I shoved down, I ate, I partied, I did everything but face those feelings. But there was still that screaming inner voice my entire life that knew that there was something more and deeper. I've known it, it's the breadcrumbs. And sometimes I was willing to listen and sometimes not. And that day that you're describing in the book that I shared in the shower was that day when the running stopped for that moment, and everything that I hadn't thought about up until that point. Because I thought I put him in jail. I thought like, this was it. I dealt with it. I'm cool. Like, I talked about it so openly too. But that day, that moment, that day in the beach, all came back to me. And as you said, I found myself literally just sobbing. And it was the first time that I had faced that day. And so for me, that lesson learned, and for anyone, is you don't have to get to that point. Most of us though do, because that's what gets our attention. Let's be real here. It's always the hardest moment. It's when we surrender. It's when we let down our ego and and we're our most vulnerable, that we're finally open to hear the messages. And that's what it was. I was open to hear it. And that day was like, you got to face this shit. You got to face this.
Well, and you have an entire chapter on that, talking about that. We'll get to that too.
So, I mean, that was really it. I mean, if you're talking about a lesson in that moment, it's it's the same ongoing thing. Stop, slow down, listen. Don't be afraid to face what that is, because the truth is, Raylin, is that moment had already happened.
Yes.
And what was tormenting my whole life was me running from it.
Right.
Because what I learned was as soon as I faced it, the monster is no longer a monster.
It evaporates, right? And then we're just left with our feelings, and our feelings are completely 100% understandable and valid in that moment. And it really is the monster of feeling the feelings, because I was, well, okay, so I don't want to sound creepy, but I was in that shower with you. I know, right?
So it was you. Okay, well, next time I'm wearing a bathing suit.
I promise the show is not going in a different direction.
I'm good. I get you.
But I really was, the way that you wrote it, but also again too, you know, having the experiences that I had, because I can relate to those moments. And you know, so here it goes. So I was there with you, and I know what that feels like, to be having these waves of it sometimes, where you just feel like your head is maybe kind of like this and somewhat like this, with the emotions and the wave of it, you know, and all of that. What is your encouragement to our viewers that are watching, to ride through those tides? You know, sometimes it can be so upsetting and so powerful and roiling, right? And we just feel like we're not catching our breath.
Well, you know, what's interesting is that I didn't learn it that day, but I did learn it years later. And it's now one of my self-love and self-care practices that I do every day. That day, that little girl, all she needed was for someone to sit with her, to understand her, to listen to her, to let her know that she'd be okay. I didn't get any of that at a young age, not because my family didn't love me, but because they didn't know how to handle that. My father, the only way he knew how to handle was for us not to talk about it. Yeah. And so in that non-talking, what I took in was that he was ashamed of me.
Right.
And my mom, in her motherly ways, she just wanted me never to be hurt again. So she taught me this whole thing about not going off with strangers and being so naive. And so what I learned from that was it was my fault.
Yeah.
I made that mistake.
Yeah.
So no one sat with the 7-year-old Shari and said, someone should not have done that to you. I'm so sorry, and sat and hugged me. And so that day in the shower, and for the years after, that is what I say to anyone who's feeling that, is to sit with that young girl or young boy or whomever's hurt and say, I got you. We're going to be okay. That whole self-love, I hug myself literally every day. 6 years later, no, 5 years later, that was another, it's always the moments in the shower, Raylin. It's weird. It's always the moments in the shower. Again, I think it's that most vulnerable part of ourselves.
Yeah.
But I got the message. She spoke up. My 7-year-old spoke up and said, I just wanted to be hugged. And so that's what I heard. And then I heard the voice. And for me, it was God that said, so give her a hug.
Yeah.
And so I literally put my arms around myself in the shower and I squeezed the heck out of myself. And then I bawled. And I literally do that every single day. I start my day that way and I end my day that day with my arms around me and I say, I love you so much. And that changes my entire life, that no matter what happens each day, I don't have to worry about anybody else. I got my back. I've got me.
Yep. Whew. Oh my gosh, you guys.
And she described me as happy and joyful.
I know, right? There's so many tears if we're trying to be happy.
Tears are good. Tears
are great, actually. You know, I love on talking about all of that on page 23. I love where you said, why couldn't I just ever leave well enough alone? I identified with that too, because I was always the kid going, but why? But how come? But why? But what if? But did you? But you know, always. Totally. And you were talking about how you said you were always seeking, always watching, always discovering, always wanting more. It's like a running theme of my life. Still is. Yep. My husband would vouch for that every 5 minutes. But, you know, one of the things too that you speak in the book about along with that is then finding your voice, because in that moment when you were, you know, you were at the beach, right? And in that experience, you were crying out you were asking, I mean, you were calling for your sister to come and join you. You didn't have the full language to say this, that, and the other, right? Not only that, this is a person who has intimidated you to the point where if you speak it,
Yep.
then you're going to be hurt, or you'll be killed, or you'll be, drowned, because you were in the ocean then, right?
Yes.
So how has that process been then? And can you kind of see the theme of finding your voice and speaking out? And it's no mistake that you are doing what you do in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it actually, I only just discovered that a couple of years ago. I put that together where I was like, wow, my entire life I've been speaking out and really just trying to get people to hear me. And it's because I wasn't heard that day.
Yeah.
So it's like between the acting, like hear me, see me, you know, and then speaking out about what happened, to where people would say to me, like, you know, because no one was talking about sexual abuse years ago. And my dad he was like, do you have to share all that? And I'm like, yeah, I do.
Right.
Yeah. And I wish that, but I didn't know how to shut up about it. I didn't know how to. And so, yes, I see now that it's me needing to be heard, but it's morphed into, that was, in a way, I don't know if it was egoic, like from an ego space of like, but now I know that it's from, I feel all of this love and I just need everybody to feel that too.
Yeah.
And so now that voice speaks out in a different way. Before it was like, see me, love me, care for me, take care of me, keep me safe.
Yeah.
And now it's like, just love, you know, but there is, I see what you're talking about so clearly now.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm also reading. So I'm presenting at Soul Tree, and it's one of our favorite topics on inner child stuff, right? And so doing this research and being led to Carolyn Mays's book, Why People Don't Heal and How They Can, she speaks a lot about the addiction and the emotional payoff and otherwise payoff of staying in that victim mentality. Can you speak to your life in that and process of that, and what brought you out of that?
It's interesting because since I was told from a young age that I was strong and powerful and brave and all of these things, I always didn't want to be a victim. So that's why, like, I felt like I needed to speak out. However, my actions were completely incongruent to what my voice was saying. You know, had a completely unhealthy relationship with food in a big way. Like, that was my numbing medication. That was it. That I didn't want to feel anything. And so I chose food. And then I chose men that were completely like non-respectful, unhealthy relationships, you know, but that's because I was mirroring that myself, which of course I didn't know that at the time, you know, so all of my actions were completely victim, but my mind was like, I am not a victim. You know, I refuse to be. But it wasn't until many years later when I again stopped and slowed down and looked and said, oh, the food's not responsible for this. The guy's not responsible for this. This is all about the choices you're making, Shari.
Oh, yes. That's where Ho'oponopono tells us that we are 100% responsible. That's that
People
aspect.
hate hearing that. People
Right?
hate hearing that. Like, because, but that's where the work that I feel that I'm passionate about is, because it's about acknowledging it, recognizing, but then not beating yourself up about it.
Yeah.
It's about going, oh, no wonder why you do that. Oh, I understand. Of course you would do that. And being compassionate with yourself and loving with yourself and holding yourself through these discoveries, because that's where people get hurt and why people don't want to face it, because then they're going to end up victimizing themselves even more.
Yeah. Yeah, and I completely identify too with the relationship aspect of it too. And I fell into the same thing. You know, the ACEs study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, speaks to those who have been traumatized and abused in various ways. It tends to lead us into promiscuity, you know, because we're seeking, right? We're seeking those close, intimate relationships, and for someone else to fix and validate what's in here. But we're the only ones who can do that. Right.
Well, there was this, absolutely. I mean, there was this misuse or abuse of us as children, which then, or whenever that happens, makes you feel like you are not valuable and you have no worth because someone discarded you like that. And so then we go through our lives seeking that worth and that validation through everything else. No, I am valuable, I am worthy, but of course we haven't been taught any better. So we're just making the same choices that we made with people who are going to not validate that for us.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Right.
So no, I was the girl that was like, people that didn't even understand. Like, I just recently shared a picture of me at 270 pounds.
Yeah.
And people were shocked by that. I was shocked by it. But then I also thought about, I dated so many guys. People like thought I was so confident, like, and it's this idea of that I was still putting myself out there because I still needed people to see me and people to make me feel this worth that of course I never did. So it was like, I didn't even realize that I even looked that way or got that way.
Yeah.
I was too busy being promiscuous and too busy proving my value and worth through everything else externally.
Yeah. And on page 26, you remind us what is meant for you to heal will always find its way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Always.
Always.
Yeah. And unless you're really paying attention or willing to let it in, that's when it hurts.
Yeah.
You know, that's when it shows up in your behaviors. That's when it shows up in the people, like the guys, you know, dressed as different men each time, but keep doing the same thing or the same choices you keep making.
Yes.
Yeah.
And which ties us to page 42. I'm just going to quote you all your quotes.
Awesome. I love it.
Right. People will never see what we want them to see until we start being the person we are trying to be.
Did I write that? That's good.
You did. We're going to make a meme, girlfriend. We're going to make a meme right now and attach wellness. Okay. It wasn't until I began being truthful with myself about who I was and what I wanted that it began to show up. So can you share with us how that began looking in maybe your day-to-day stuff and the minuscule choices, and then how that began to be the bigger picture for you?
Yeah, well, I think for me, there came a point where I was like, I'm tired. Like there was this day, I don't even remember the particular day, but I remember about to text this guy for like the 100th time, asking him why he's ignoring me. You know, that whole, like, I'm going to make them see me and love me and you are not going to like discard me. And by me showing up in this way. And I had this imagery of this brick wall in front of me.
Wow.
And I saw it. And I saw that as soon as I sent this text that I'm just heading right for it again, just to smash right into it. And I remember choosing it again. And that was the day, like, after I did that, that's where I was like, oh, this is you that keeps doing this. Like, and once you decide to not hit the gas pedal into that brick wall, then everything else will change. And I write about it in the book, this moment with this guy and this strawberry shake incident.
Yeah. That was powerful.
It was rock bottom moment for me. That was, you know, I'll just tell you, we went to this guy that was like a friend. Everybody was always a friend with benefits, to be real. Like, you know, I was always good enough in that space, but not good enough to be the girlfriend. Like, that's how I always felt. Like, that's where the victim came in, you know? And I was going to turn you over to loving me. Like, that was my mission. You're gonna end up falling in love with me, which never happened because, again, I didn't feel that about myself. So this particular day, he was like, go to McDonald's and get me a shake. And long story short, I got him the wrong one and he threw it in my face. But it's just, sometimes I think about that girl and I'm like, I am so sorry you dealt with that and that you put up with that. But then I found myself standing back at his door with strawberry shake all over me, begging him to, you know, treat me better. And why are you doing this? And I remember like literally seeing myself at the top of like where his overhang is, like looking down at myself, begging to be respected and begging to be loved. But I'm standing there like with shake on me.
Yeah, was covered.
Complete like.
Yeah.
And then I ended up going in the house with him and we ended up sleeping together later that night. And I ended up leaving in the middle of the night. And it was that brick wall moment though, that made me never return again, made me never return a phone call, never text, because it was that hole that I said started with, I was just tired. I was tired of being heard. I was tired of like saying, I deserve better. I don't understand why I'm not doing better, you know? So that was the first, long story. That was the first moment of that little piece that was like, not only do you deserve better, but you made this choice. I finally made a choice that was in support of me, and it felt good. And that was the first time I felt good. And then I wanted more of that feeling good. And so once I got him out of my life, then it was like, oh, well, this person, it was like a physical feeling. This person doesn't make me feel good either. There's something that feels off. And I started recognizing that. And then I started making those better choices. And maybe I shouldn't eat that, or maybe I should go to that audition and not go out the night before. And maybe, and it was all these smaller pieces put together that led me through, you know, to where I'm at now.
Like, yeah, and you finally showed up for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And became what you had, and began to be able to give yourself what you had always needed and sought for.
And when the first thing you started off with was that we all know what we need to heal. There has always been this voice inside. There's always been this light inside. There's always been something that's guiding me and directing me and pushing me, well, pulling me forward. It's like always this hand up type thing. And I would always turn away from it. And then finally I took the hand. Yeah. And that's what that day was. Leaving in the middle of the night was like, it's time to go, you know, it's time to go. And that's when, everything, I started making better choices for me.
Yeah. I so much of that resonates with me too. Oh my gosh, I've had those relationships where I was the chick standing at the door, and the moments where I'm watching myself and hearing myself, and just, it's that other part of me going, really? How many times are you going to keep throwing yourself on this same, altar to be, abused, whatever, and on and on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's simply us just wanting someone to love us, and, it was just to make up for that. And that's where I have the compassion for me. And that's where the voice went from being, why are you so dumb? To, of course I understand. Of course I understand why you did those things. And I'm sorry that you had felt like that was your only choice. There's such a different voice with ourselves that we can speak to ourselves. And that in itself is what changes our lives and the quality of our lives.
Amen. Amen. I love too how so we're going to get to the sometimes shit just sucks.
Yeah, there's my voice.
Right? I love this chapter because you bring up the very real trap that we can get caught up in. We call it spiritual bypassing, right? Where everything, unicorns fart glitter and right, rainbows come out of their butt, and all this stuff, right? There are very real things that happen to us. I mean, we've been talking about that.
Right.
And sometimes it does just suck. So how do you incorporate that in with what you're, with who you are and what you share in your world and with your clients and as your deeper, greater message?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us to understand is that feeling anger, feeling sadness, feeling frustration, jealous, any of these negative feelings we deem are not actually bad. And so I always felt the need, like as this positive, inspirational, motivational person, that I always had to be positive, and I always had to find the bright side, and I always had to dig deeper and see the lesson and all of that. And that gets exhausting too. It gets exhausting. And that's when I said, sometimes shit just does suck. Like sometimes, you do get a flat tire when you're completely broke. Sometimes you don't get that job. And so I could sit there and talk about, there's two things we can do. We can either sulk in it and then victimize ourselves, and why is my life so awful, and why do all these awful things happen? And then you feel terrible and you make worse choices. Or you can go to the extreme and completely ignore how much it sucks and find the positive, but still be pissed off secretly and still make bad choices. So for me, there is this middle ground to just acknowledge, this is a crappy situation I'm in right now, but I'll get through it, and even though that's positive, but it's sitting there and acknowledging that it does suck, and being okay with the suck,
Yeah.
You know, because once you're okay with it, then you can actually move through it without any of the added stuff we put on it.
Right. Well, I love the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu shares with us to become more like water, and water isn't always a rushing, kind of huge wave. Sometimes it's that slow trickle, or that slow, steady, consistent movement. But the water always goes around the obstacle, or it goes under the obstacle, or even sometimes its persistency carves a path through the obstacle too.
Love it.
And I think that speaks to our need and our development of resiliency, wouldn't you say? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Some of us come into this world a little more resilient than others, but I believe that it can be developed. Would you agree?
Yes. I mean, I often look to nature. It's a beautiful, like, to trees, because I'm a big hiker and stuff. It's like, when fall comes around, like, the trees aren't like, I am not going to release you and I'm going to fight against this and everything. They just chill. And I'm like, all right, there you go, because the next season is coming. And for me, it's just, and this is still an ongoing lesson. Don't think, this is an important message that I need people to hear. Don't think because I'm a self-love coach and because I know these tools that I just suddenly have no challenges and no issues. Like, I still deal with the whole surrender aspect. I was just wrote about it recently, and my impatience with things showing up. And, so one of my greatest lessons is patience and surrender. And so I look to these muses for me, to nature, to, to see, like, oh, it's when I breathe, it's when I release, when I let go, that everything actually is okay.
Yes. I love that you bring that up, because just even the imagery of that, trees don't try to hold on to the leaves, right? They just know that this is the time, this is the period for this now, but also there's that faith and that knowing and trusting that through the period of fall, and then through the dormancy of winter, then new growth and new blossoming and all of that, and new health and vitality emerges in the spring.
Yeah.
And our lives.
And each season has its own reason, like has its own blessings and gifts in it, because there comes a time in the winter where you do just need to stop and slow down. And, like, there's just so much wisdom there. And that is who and what we're made of. And we allow this here to fight against that. And one of my big beliefs is that our minds are so necessary. Everybody sees them as evil. And the only thing we have to do is really just get our minds to support us and work with us, not against us.
Yes. We master it, right? We master it.
Right.
Absolutely. But it's a good communication tool, because then it can show us, it's just feedback for our navigation.
Yeah. One of my favorite teachers that's been for a few years that really just got me into meditation is Sarah Blondin. If you haven't heard of her, you should definitely. Well, I played her at actually the last Soul Tree.
She was amazing, you guys.
Yeah. I mean, she's amazing. And she just speaks on this so strongly. I forgot what we were talking about, but you should check her out. My mind sometimes.
We were talking about just the surrendering, the acceptance and allowing, and the crud.
I know you had just said something that sparked that in my mind. It's okay.
Yes.
It wasn't. It's okay. It's gone. Just like
dang it.
I know. I'm letting it go.
The mastering of our mind, right? And the reframing and the training.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So she speaks about, like, that our minds, when we wake up in the morning, often go seeking and searching for that which has hurt us. What was I upset about yesterday? What am I still in pain about? Instead of using our minds to seek what is beautiful about this moment. What gifts have I been given? So it's just taking what we already have and redirecting it to support us. And I just love that, because I was like, oh man, I do that. I do think about what are the things that are going to stress me out today, or what are the things that I have to do, Yes. And as soon as I had that, it's like, oh, it was like this light bulb moment that was like, oh, I don't have to do that.
Yeah. Yesterday in our journaling group, we were talking, and one of my girlfriends shared a meme with us, and it's this little brain kind of sitting off over here, focusing on something, and it's this little bubble person saying, hey, look at this pile of stuff over here, and it's a bunch of stuff that's labeled good, wonderful, amazing, fantastic. and this little brain is focusing on the sheet of paper that says things that suck or things that have gone wrong, right? And it's what we do.
Yep.
I mean, we're so wired to the threat assessment of stuff, right? And the looking for that it takes that intentionality. So when you got quiet, how was that, and how was that experience, and how did you kind of learn to embrace it and love it? I love silence now. Yeah. I love being with myself now. How did that happen for you?
Well, it's interesting. I've always loved, okay, no, that's not true. I didn't always love being by myself. A long time ago, I had to busy myself with people. I was like always as many people as possible around me and keeping busy, like my fan club, you know, all of that really was just, you know, quieting out everything that needed to be paid attention to. But I still find now, okay, so now I love being with myself so much that people think I'm a hermit and I am antisocial.
Me too.
Including my fiance, who was the quiet one. When he met me, I was, you know, the girl and now I'm like, yeah, I don't want to go. I kind of want to just stay home, and I'll go and read my book or listen to my, you know, meditations, whatever that is. And so I'm trying to find the middle ground with that, because I know that there is a healthy balance between the two. But what happened when I got silent was that I was always pulled to be still. And as soon as I would get very close to tapping in, like I would feel it coming, I would snap out of it. I ran, and I could physically feel myself being there and then going like that, because it was too scary. And the only time that I was able to stop that was a couple of years ago when I got really sick. And what I was describing before, which was like this desperation where you let down all of your walls, you let down all of your defenses because you have nowhere else to go. And it's a reason why most people change at rock bottom. And Dr. Dolores Fazzino, who's part of the Wellness Universe, had stepped up she said, if you ever just want to talk to someone. And so she introduced me to this idea of meditation, which of course I'd been introduced to it before, and I tried it before, and I wasn't able to shut that down. But for whatever reason, this was my time. And that, you know, just everything showed up. But not even just about the past and all of these things, but what was this light in me, was like my beauty, was my wholeness, was my magnificence, was like this thing that I was like, whoa, you're amazing. Like, God, what a gift we've all been given is our souls. And that introduction and glimpse into that was like, that's all I ever need. To know that I'm always going to be okay. And that's why at the end of every chapter, I write what I write, you know, go easy on yourself, because we're always going to be okay. We are okay.
Which leads us into the chapter.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm kidding.
Which leads us into the chapter on perfection. Oh my gosh. If ever, we need to hear this message, right? And it's very common with those of us who have had the childhood traumas and all of that, have gone through that, because being perfect, we have associated with then being seen or loved or validated or enough or worthy or whatever it is, right? Or staying out of the crossfire.
Yeah, for me, it was safety. Perfectionism equals safety.
Same here.
All the right choices. I'm doing all the right things. I'm not going off with a stranger. Like
100%. Yeah. Or if I was the dutiful daughter or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
What happened, right?
Page 70, you say, when I sense that I'm approaching that slope of, let me back up. It says, here's the thing that I'm proud to say now. I'm learning how to jump off before I slide down the slippery slope that takes me away into the crazy land of trying so damn hard to be perfect. When I sense I'm approaching that slope, I give myself pep talks. I sure do. I remind myself that all I have to do is just try. Here we go. I remind myself that all I have to do is show up for this task, this moment, this anything. And no matter the outcome, I'm not going to die. These words on this paper, perfect or not, do not determine my worth. that I was bawling again.
Right, like now.
I read that because I was like, this, you're glimpsing, you're looking at my soul.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. And it's the message I share with people too.
That's it. I mean, because we've wrapped our value and worth in all the things that we do.
Yes.
That when I was able to see that none of that, because in other chapters, as I shared in there about that one day that I was scrolling through Facebook and I had all of these people telling me how beautiful and wonderful I was and all of these things that I thought that I always needed in the validation. And there I was looking at it and it meant nothing to me. Like, meaning I was so numb to it. And it was in that moment that I realized, oh, it's not about all of that, because here it is. I've got it. I've got what I said I needed. And I still don't feel this way about myself. It still hasn't made me feel better. And so realizing that our worth and our value isn't based on what I've achieved, on even this book, on what my bank account looks like, whether I'm engaged, married, whatever, none of that matters until I'm willing to look at myself and love who I am without any of that stuff. And that, as you just described, that's what that was, in this perfectionism and just showing up. And so that's what I've learned to do every moment, show up for it, however I show up, wig, no wig, makeup, no makeup, all of that stuff. Just show up and be here in it. Yeah.
Yesterday, we have a gal in our group that is, she's deaf, and my heart breaks because she was saying yesterday that she's trying to learn to forgive herself for losing her hearing. And I had to stop her, Shari. I had to share with her, you have lost nothing. There is absolutely nothing that is a minus in who you are, in how you are in this manifestation, any of it. You are absolutely perfectly created and fashioned, every bit of you, right? And the pain, I could hear the pain of that and feel that she felt as though she needed to try to forgive that. There's nothing lost in her.
She probably has more than most of us do. You know what I mean? Like,
she does.
People look at, that's why whenever I look at people who claim that they have disabilities, I'm like, first of all, we all do. Like, it may not be physical, know, but I got something else that I'm dealing with.
Right.
And so there's just shows in some physical way the perfection in and I hate using the word perfection because of the whole perfectionism thing, but there is a perfection and a wholeness to us, no matter what we have or what we don't have. And that it just
really, honestly,
more in touch with everything else than.
Yeah, I even think as I'm getting older and God is doing more work in my life, spirit, is moving and shaking in me. I really believe that it's in those things that we perceive as not having or should have, or the lack of that, or whatever that ends up being the most magical thing about us.
Right. And it's the thing that makes us suffer the most until we realize the magic in it. Like, because it's the should haves and, and the expectations of what life should be like. And, that's where I still suffer right now. When I look at what I think, like, this is what I was created to be, and I don't have it. And so since I don't have it, I guess I must not be enough,
right here. Yes.
Right. Yeah, totally. And it's that's where we choose the suffering. And as soon as we let go of that, that's where we end up discovering our magic and our beauty and all of that, in that not having those things, because that's where we that's where the magic is.
I love she has paragraphs at the end of each section called Fuel Up. And in this one, she says, on the road to self-love, do the best that you can. Show up, be kind, love hard, be honest, and have fun. And when you screw up, apologize. There is no perfect person out there. And once you give up on trying to be that, you'll come out seeing that who you are is good enough. Just keep being more of you, more of your perfectly imperfect self.
Yeah.
When you say that's like your running like mantra, I mean, I think from my knowing of you, it has been the theme, the neon sign above you that you bring with you, and that it's the message that you cry out in the wilderness for all of us to hear.
Because like I said, I tried for so long, and it's exhausting to try to be what I think that they need me to be, and what I envisioned for myself, like that writer that goes to Starbucks and does all those things and shows up that way, and the perfect girlfriend and the perfect business partner. I mean, even when I showed up for the Wellness Universe, like I was so hard on myself because I hadn't run a business before, and I needed to be that perfect, all of this. And that's actually where I've learned the most about myself, is in the reflection of in building a business, all the things that I needed to face. And so it's in all of this that I realized the only thing I've ever needed to be is just me. And that's not perfect at everything, you know?
Yeah.
It just isn't. And it's so freeing when I could say to someone, I'm sorry that I'm not the greatest communicator, and I don't make phone calls, and maybe I should. And, you know, when I could show up as that imperfect friend. And whether you choose in that moment that you want to stay connected with me, or you choose to forgive me, or whatever that is, that's my truth. And I want to be better, but I'm just not in this moment. And that was so freeing for me to do that in relationships too. And so just showing up and saying, yeah, like, and I've mentioned it again, I wear a wig. I tried for so long to hide that. And then that got exhausting. And so it's this whole theme of, it's too hard. I just want to have more fun. And more fun to me looks like just being me.
Yeah, I remember when we first met, because I have followed you and Anna for so many years. When we first met, I was so glad to finally meet you, and I just love your hair, because I'm a hairstylist too, in a former life of myself. And the first thing out of your mouth was, "It's a wig."
I know, and still people hate it. Like John, like when we go face, it's like, you don't have to tell everybody. And I said, I think it's because I hid it for so long that now it's like I'm so comfortable in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and plus I feel like I'm kind of lying when someone's like, I love your hair, because then I feel like I think too much too, like that they really want it, and I really want to be like, well, you can't have it. You just can go to the store and buy it.
Let me take it.
It's caramel ribbon. You know,
right.
So yeah, there's probably the extreme too of like, you know, just recently someone said it, and I finally said thank you, and thank you very much, and John goes, thank you for not having to share with everyone.
Right, there you go. No, and I laughed because of the openness and transparency of it, and that's just so much who you are. But it really is stunning and beautiful. But you know, I don't believe anybody could tell. I just know what they look like. Nothing was askew or anything like that. Just from being in the industry.
Right.
But nobody can tell that about you.
Well, we were talking at Soul Treat out in the back behind the art cabinet, and that's where other people were complimenting me, and when I said it, and they didn't know, and you were like, well, I knew, like, and it was, but you're in the hair industry, you know? Yeah. So again, it was such an important thing to hold on to for me, because I was so worried that people weren't going to love me as much, or they were going to judge me. I was somehow not going to be perfect. And now it is such like a non-issue in my life.
It is.
And that's when I see like that, I was like, oh, you're so worried about that. Like, so what? So what they think. So what?
Well, and it's interesting, I think, too, we find ourselves, because we know the skeleton closet. We often go there and look around and poke around and, bathe in it a lot, too much in our opinion, right? But I think it's surprising to us sometimes when people are genuinely receiving us and genuinely seeing us and genuinely witnessing us, and they're still standing there and they're just like, yeah, this is fantastic. I love being with you.
Yeah, that's actually what happened with the wig. I finally admitted it to everybody. I remember I did it at work, which I write about in the book, but then I went home after doing that, and I was like, I had a big following on my YouTube and my blog, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to share it with everybody. And so I wrote about it in a blog, and then I was so nervous and I kept wanting to delete it. And I was like, don't schedule it for the next day. And I finally took like 2 Tylenol PMs to knock myself out so I wouldn't have deleted. And when I woke up in the morning, there was over 100 emails in my inbox.
Wow. Yeah.
Like thanking me.
Yeah.
Thanking me. Like, yes. Because there was this lady that this woman me that was perceived as a certain way, and then stepping in and owning that vulnerability just gave them that permission. And that for me was like, oh man, we're all walking this together. We're all insecure about something. We all have something we worry about. Well, what about, and that's why the work that I do, where I share it all. I want people to know, as a self-love coach, as someone who's an inspirational speaker, that I still journey with it too, that I'm still on this path with you, that none of us are immune to any of this. It's not like I don't have bad days. It's not like I don't, am hard on myself some days. It's just that I've learned the tools, ways to navigate through that.
Yes. Yeah. And you're just there holding the space and pointing the way and just saying, go this way, go this way. Oh, right? Like the directing traffic.
Follow the light, go into the light. It's yours.
Yeah. I love that. And I absolutely love and adore you. I absolutely do. Shari, share with us how people can find you and how they can work with you and know what you're up to next. Share about Soul Treat, all of it.
Yes. Well, of course, as you mentioned, I am the co-founder of the Wellness Universe, which is how, we met at Soul Treat, and now you are an amazing part of it. And so you're part of our team now too. Journey in and of itself to just
honor
here with us. Yeah. So everybody can always connect with me directly at thewellnessuniverse.com. You just put my name in, or you go to the team page, you'll see me on social media at Shari Alyse. And then I have my own personal coaching website and speaker website, which is sharialyse.com. I do offer self-love coaching sessions, packages. Really, people get this self-love thing all weird. And for me, it's just showing up with kindness and compassion, but not everybody knows how to do that. And so I just guide and sit with you in that space to start seeing that. So that's the work that I do. And then the biggest and best thing, there's 2 great things happening. If you're in the Los Angeles area, I'm doing my first book signing of Love Yourself Happy this coming Saturday. Whenever you watch this, it's happening now. So in Venice, whatever that means, September 21st, Venice, at the Mystic Journey bookstore. So very excited. I'm doing a talk and a signing for this. And then in November, we are doing Soul Treats, and I would love to connect with you in person. We have people, when I say people, I mean souls like you, doing workshops, and just, it's an amazing transformational time that you need to be at. So that's an amazing way to connect with me and to connect with you and 30 plus other fabulous souls.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. That'll be in Sedona, November 2nd and 3rd. So, and you can check that out at www.soultreat.com.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we have an awesome, I don't know when you're going to watch this, but if you're watching it today, we have an awesome sale going on right now, which is only good until tomorrow. So you definitely want to grab your tickets now.
Yes, buy one, get one, you guys. Buy one, get one half off.
Yep.
Do it. So you and a buddy, bring them. I have a caravan coming with me. Yes. Oh, the hugs are the best.
That was it. When we were creating it, I said, we've got to have hugs. Like there are people here that need them, and there's people that love to give them, and those who need to receive it. And that's what that space was like. Just show up and create that space for everybody.
Yeah. And it's transformative. It really is. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for shining from within. Because if you, here we go.
Yep.
If you, I know, if you hadn't and didn't step up to the plate, I wouldn't know you and the Wellness Universe. We would have connected in Sedona, and we wouldn't be here speaking now. And this wonderful, beautiful message, you guys, of loving yourself happy would not be in the universe and would not be in your hands, not in my hands either. So thank you so, so much. Your impact and your influence and just your radiance shines out for all of us. And it does. It gives so many of us, all of us, so much more permission and love and compassion for ourselves and for those around us. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Rae-diance, so much for having me on Rae-diance, because all I'm doing is reflecting that back to you. And so I just thank you for that. I really received that, which I wasn't always able to do. And that's the beautiful thing about self-love, is that you can receive it, which I do. And the only thing that I do in this world is show up and shine so you see yours.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you for this.
Monica Freeman says thank you to both of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Shari. Love you.
Love you too.